Good evening and welcome to our nightly telecast of Just the News, where we give you all of the information that's happened in the country and the world in just around 10 minutes. Now, before we get started on the news today, I have a clarification to offer on a WhatsApp forward, a very wicked WhatsApp forward that's doing the rounds that says that young girls and women should not get vaccinated within 5 days before or after their period. I have personally spoken with gynecologists and doctors who tell me this is complete and utter nonsense, and there is no connection or correlation whatsoever with the menstrual cycle and the vaccination or in any way your immunity. So you should not believe what you read on WhatsApp, and please tell other people who might be inclined to believe this as well that it's complete nonsense. Let's get to the news today. As we have done for several days now, we have to offer viewer discretion for a trigger warning because the news remains extremely distressing. On to our first story. Well, several hospitals were sending out SOS signals over oxygen shortage in Delhi. At least 2 Delhi hospitals asked family members to take their patients away and seek admission elsewhere. According to PTI, Saroj Super Speciality Hospital and the Batra Hospital reportedly told families of COVID-19 patients to seek admission in other healthcare facilities because they were facing a severe oxygen shortage. Delhi's Segal Neo Hospital tweeted, and I quote, "We need an urgent supply of oxygen. We have a few hours of oxygen left. We've reached out to everyone. We have 120 COVID patients, many of them needing oxygen and on life support." End tweet. Admissions in AIIMS emergency ward was briefly restricted for an hour today, according to reports, as oxygen pipelines were being reorganized due to increased demand. Dr. SCL Gupta, MD of Batra Hospital, broke down today when speaking to the media. He was speaking to ANI and he said, "We are requesting people to take patients wherever oxygen is available. We understand a patient is someone's mother, father or brother or sister. If I lose someone close, I'd naturally feel bad as well," he said as he broke down. According to NDTV, director of Saroj Hospital said that Inox, one of the biggest manufacturers and suppliers of oxygen, was not responding and their situation at the hospital was very critical. 20 patients passed away last night in Delhi's Jaipur Golden Hospital due to a shortage of medical oxygen. Medical superintendent at the hospital, Dr. D.K. Baluja, told the Indian Express, "These patients were critically ill and it all happened in a critical care area. Yes, oxygen pressure was down for some time. They didn't die during that period exactly. It takes 10 minutes here and there, but the pressure was definitely low. They were generally on very high load of oxygen, so that is the reason." He said that at least 215 COVID patients were admitted at the hospital and are critical and in dire need of oxygen. Our supply was delayed by 7 to 8 hours on Friday night, and the stock we received last night was only 40% of our required supply, he said. Just like several other hospitals in Delhi and other parts of the country, Jaipur Golden Hospital has now approached the High Court for help. Meanwhile, Jaipur Golden Hospital, the Sir Gangaram Hospital, Batra Hospital, Fortis, Shalimar Bagh, Mata Chanan Devi Hospital, Metro Hospital, Preet Vihar, Saroj Hospital have all made SOS calls because of a shortage of oxygen. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has written to all chief ministers across the country requesting them to provide oxygen to the national capital if they have any to spare. He tweeted today, and I quote, "While I'm writing to all chief ministers requesting them to provide oxygen to Delhi if they can spare, the central government is also helping us. The severity of corona is such that all available resources are proving inadequate." End tweet. And it's not just in Delhi. 6 patients have passed away in a private hospital in Punjab's Amritsar. Out of these, 5 were being treated for COVID. Families of those patients allege that ventilators had run out of oxygen, and the officials at the hospital blamed the district administration for prioritizing the state-run hospitals over private hospitals. Nilkant Hospital's MD Sunil Devgan has said that they were sending out repeated appeals to the state government. Hospitals where there were no COVID patients have a surplus of oxygen supply, he said. Over the last 48 hours, we've used all our resources. We reached out for help to everybody we could. But if the government doesn't want to help, should private hospitals shut down? Where should we go? End quote. Punjab Health Minister Balbir Singh Sidhu has said they will probe the matter. On hearing petitions, the Delhi High Court is now continuing to hear petitions on oxygen shortage, and it said it will, and I quote, hang the man who obstructs the supply of oxygen. The court also said we will not spare anyone. The court termed the massive rise and increase of cases of COVID as not a wave but a tsunami. The Delhi government, before the court, said that if we don't get 480 metric tons of oxygen, the system will collapse. We've seen in the last 24 hours something disastrous will happen. Meanwhile, in response to the Delhi government's complaint that the centre was not complying with the guidelines for oxygen allocation, the central government arguing before the High Court said states are arranging from tankers to everything, we are just assisting them. But in Delhi, everything is being put on us. Delhi officials have to do their job. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, representing the Government of India in court, responded to the Delhi government and said, I know my responsibility, I know many things, but I'm not saying them. Let's try and not be a crybaby. End quote. In the meantime, India reported 3,47,000 cases of COVID in the last 24 hours, 2,624 deaths, the highest single-day spike recorded by any country anywhere in the world. This marks the third consecutive day that India has recorded over 3 lakh cases, the highest since the pandemic began. Maharashtra remains the worst affected, followed by Karnataka. Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra recorded the highest fatality at 773 in the last 24 hours. Jammu and Kashmir has announced a 34-hour curfew from 8 p.m. on Saturday to 6 a.m. on Monday to contain the spread of COVID in the state. Essential and emergency services will be allowed. All markets and commercial institutions will remain closed. Jammu and Kashmir has reported 1,937 cases of COVID and 19 deaths on Friday. Out of these, 152 were travellers. The Serum Institute of India has responded to criticism over its pricing of the Covishield vaccination. Remember, it's going to be sold to private hospitals and private entities at 600 rupees a dose, to state governments at 400 rupees a dose, and to the central government at 150 rupees starting the 1st of May when the vaccination opens for everyone above the age of 18. Now, they were responding to an article in the Indian Express that pointed out that 600 rupees and even 400 rupees is the highest price for this particular vaccine anywhere else in the world. The US or the European Union is not paying this much money for this particular vaccine. Now, Serum Institute has flagged what it calls inaccurate comparisons between global prices of the vaccine with India and said Covishield is one of the 2 vaccines in use in the country and has remained the most affordable COVID-19 vaccine available in the market today. Only a limited portion of the volume will be sold to private hospitals at 600 rupees. The price of the vaccine is still lower than a lot of other medical treatment and essentials required to treat COVID-19 and other life-threatening diseases, the Serum Institute said in its statement. The company also said that while the current situation is dire, the virus is constantly mutating and the public is at risk, we have to ensure sustainability as we must be able to invest in scaling up and expanding our capacity to fight the pandemic and save lives. I must also remind you here that the Government of India has released funds to the tune of 3,000 crore rupees to the company to scale up its production. And it also accepted in an interview earlier that even at the pricing of 150 rupees, it is making a profit on this vaccine. And on a positive note, Hyderabad-based pharma company Biological E has announced that it has completed phase 2 of its COVID vaccine trial and has received approval for phase 3 of its clinical trials from the Subject Expert Committee of the Indian regulator. This could be India's 3rd indigenous vaccine after Covishield and Covaxin. Now, in a statement, the company said 1,268 healthy participants between the age of 18 and 80 across 15 sites will participate in this study that will focus on immunogenicity and safety in this trial. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, today was speaking at a virtual event distributing e-property cards at National Panchayat Raj Day. He called for ensuring that the second wave of COVID-19 is stopped from spreading to the villages by all means, and every person in rural area be vaccinated. As he noted, the challenge before the country is at present bigger than it was last year. The Prime Minister asked local leadership to work towards complete implementation of guidelines that are being issued from time to time. He said, and I quote, I have this confidence that if someone is going to emerge victorious first in this fight against coronavirus, it's going to be India's villages and the leadership of these villages. People of villages must show the way to the country and the world." End quote. The US administration has defended its decision to restrict the export of raw materials used in the manufacture of COVID vaccines, saying the Biden administration's first obligation is to its own people to take care of American people. The State Department spokesperson said that the campaign is well underway and we are doing that for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have a special responsibility to American people. Number two, the American people in this country has been hit harder than any other country in the world, with more than 5.5 lakh deaths, tens of millions of infections in the country alone. President Joe Biden and his predecessor Donald Trump had invoked the Wartime Defense Production Act that basically says US companies have no option but to prioritize the production of vaccines and PPEs for domestic consumption, and they're not allowed to send it anywhere overseas. Now, again, I must remind you here, although Adar Poonawalla of Serum Institute of India had tweeted to Joe Biden asking him to release the raw materials that are currently not being restricted, he had confirmed in an interview earlier to CNBC TV 18 that these particular raw materials do not and are not used in the manufacture of Covishield, the vaccine that we're currently using in the country. They will be needed in the manufacture of Covovax, which is a second vaccine the company is working on, along with another company called Novavax, and that is yet to get approval. In other news away from COVID, the CBI has registered an FIR against former Home Minister of Maharashtra, Anil Deshmukh, in the alleged corruption case. Now, the CBI has also carried out multiple searches in the state in connection with Deshmukh and a few of his close associates. Anil Deshmukh has been charged under Section 7 of the amended Prevention of Corruption Act, which deals with illegal gratification obtained by a public servant. Also, Section 120B, which is criminal conspiracy of the IPC. A quick reminder for you, former Mumbai Police Commissioner Parambir Singh had accused Anil Deshmukh, who was the Home Minister then, of demanding that the police collect 100 crore rupees a month as hafta from bars and restaurants in Mumbai. At least 8 people died when a glacier broke off in Uttarakhand's Chamoli district yesterday. The Indian Army recovered the bodies and managed to rescue 384 people who were working at the Border Roads Organization camp until last evening. Bad weather conditions, heavy rain and snow had restricted rescue operations last night. The army is now trying to locate more people. The area is also continues to experience bad weather. The incident comes 2 months after flash floods in Chamoli district in February left dozens dead. Justice N.V. Ramana has taken oath as the 48th Chief Justice of India on Saturday. Justice Ramana will hold the post until August 26th next year, when he will retire. Born in Andhra Pradesh, Justice Ramana has been part of many significant rulings during his tenure in the Supreme Court. A quick look at news coming in right now from the world of business. The government has decided to grant full exemption from basic customs duty and health cess for the import of oxygen-related equipment for a period of 3 months with immediate effect. The decision comes after a high-level meeting chaired by the Prime Minister today. The government has said that the decision will boost the availability of these items and make them cheaper. The Prime Minister directed the Revenue Department to ensure seamless and quick customs clearance for such equipment. News coming in right now from across the world. The US health regulators have lifted a recommended pause on the use of the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine. This comes 10 days after the vaccine was paused over worries of blood clots. The FDA and the CDC has said that they're confident that the vaccine is safe and effective in preventing COVID-19, adding that the risk of blood clots is very, very low. Israel reported 0 coronavirus deaths on Thursday. The last time Israel reported 0 COVID-19 deaths was at the end of June last year. Israel's success is tied to its very strong vaccination effort. The health ministry has said that more than 53% of the country's population of about 9 million people have received both doses of the vaccine. The medical experts have also pointed out that the country may be close to reaching what they call herd immunity. Japan has announced a new COVID state of emergency in Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka and Hyogo on Friday, as the country battles surging infections just 3 months before the Olympics opening ceremony. The country recorded 5,014 cases and 56 deaths in the last 24 hours. A quick look at news coming in from the world of sports. India's women archery team, Deepika Kumari, Ankita Bhatkar and Komalitika Bari have reached the final of the Archery World Cup Stage 1 on Friday. The Indian trio defeated Spain and will now face Mexico in the finals. In the meantime, India's men's team lost the quarterfinals. And one piece of positive information before we leave you for the weekend. Khalsa Aid India will provide oxygen concentrators free of cost in Delhi to the residents who have tested positive for COVID and are in home isolation. The NGO launched a helpline and has already received 1,200 requests. To avail of this service, patients will need to fill a registration form. Patients with low oxygen saturation will be given priority. The director of the Khalsa Aid project, Amarpreet Singh, has said doctor's prescription and a picture of the oximeter readings will be needed besides other formalities. The organization is also trying to procure more machines and set up an online registration process to avoid physical contact. In the description of this video, apart from details on all of the other stories that we brought to you, you can also find the helpline number for Khalsa Aid Foundation's Oxygen Langar that they have now started. We'll leave you with that and we'll be back on Monday with more news. Try and have a safe and a stress-free weekend. Thank you for watching.